Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much for coming today. We appreciate you participating in this beginning of a dialogue, as Brother Khalid mentioned. Can you all hear me? Yes? Okay. I tend to have a low voice. So as Brother Khalid mentioned, I am a counselor. So I have a master's degree in social work, and I work at Muslim Family Services down the road. Now, Muslim Family Services has had a counselor with them since 1999, in general, for most of the time. So this service has been offered for 17 years now. So please, if you have any questions, if you want more information about what a counselor would do, I will certainly talk about that in my presentation. Stop by and visit us, and we'd love to talk to you and welcome you in. So, what is mental health? That's really what we're talking about today. It's just the introduction of mental health. We all know that a human is, we are a physical body, and our soul is inside our body. So if we fall and we break our leg, we go to the doctor. If we have diabetes, we go to the doctor to get medicine. But the mental health aspect, however, is something that you can't necessarily tangibly see. Mental health is really about our emotions, the way that we think and we feel, and the way we view ourselves in this world. So it's more complicated. There's nothing really absolute with, mental health. You can't necessarily look at someone and say, oh, that person is having a mental health issue. You can only see that through their actions. As opposed to someone who has cancer, for example, you could see that in the test results. It's something tangible, you see it. But mental health is not. So a lot of times, unfortunately, as not only Muslim societies, but in all societies in general, mental health hasn't really been a real science since much later, after physical health. So, and as Muslims as well, as we need to understand that it's medicine is not only to see a doctor that is a medical doctor, or the imam. Certainly the imam will help you spiritually, reach help you to reach Allah and, religiously our goals as a human, as a Muslim. But we also have to focus on our emotions. Am I an angry person? How do I deal with stress? What happens if I find myself arguing with my family members all the time? What's going on there? Can you hear my voice? Okay, good. So what is mental illness? As I mentioned, mental illness is a diagnosis. Actually, in the last 100, 200 years, they're starting to put names to certain mental health disorders. They're not all the same. Someone who's depressed is not the same as someone who has schizophrenia. Is not the same as someone who has addictions. They're different, but within the realm of mental health. And where should you go if you see someone who's addicted, or yourself addicted to substances or alcohol or gambling or any type of bad addiction, or you're sad all the time, you're anxious, you're getting panic attacks? You would go to a clinical social worker, a psychologist, a professional counselor, or a psychiatrist. So those are the people who you would go to if you think that you have some type of an emotional or mental health issue. So what is it like to go to a mental health professional? Different than a doctor. A doctor, you see them for, maybe 15 minutes, and they kind of, they take your blood pressure and your vitals, and they go through tests and they tell you what you have. With mental health, you go to someone and you talk to someone. So it takes longer. You sit there and you talk. What are you dealing with? How are you feeling? How long have you been feeling this way? How are you dealing with the situation? How are the people around you? It takes a good hour, or even more, to talk about yourself. A lot of people feel that it's refreshing. It's nice to go to someone and just to talk, and it's all about you. It's about you and your feelings and the way that you view yourself in the world. And it takes more time, certainly. That's why when you go to a counselor or a therapist, by the way, those two words are the same. A counselor and a therapist do the same thing in general. You go to them generally once a week for an hour each week just to talk. Now, I know a lot of you would be like, oh, I'm not going to go to a counselor just to talk. I can talk to my friend. I can talk to my brother or my sister or my wife or whatever. But this type of a counselor, this professional, is trained to guide you to what you feel is best for you to reach your goals in a more professional manner. A brother or sister probably would just tell you, do this, do that, more judgmental, straight out, oh, you did this wrong, you did this right. And certainly that's very important. That's good to have these types of relationships in your life. But as a counselor, you go to that counselor, you talk to them, you kind of get a better gist of who you are with no judgment. And that counselor doesn't tell you what to do. Doesn't tell you, you have to do this, you have to do that. The counselor helps you to find your way. So when we talk about mental health, depression always comes up. Depression is kind of like the first disease of mental illness. And depression isn't always the same, as I mentioned. With mental health, someone who's depressed isn't like someone who's schizophrenic, isn't like someone who has addictions, isn't as someone who has bipolar. But depression comes in many different forms. There's mild, someone who can have mild depression, and someone could have more severe depression and have psychotic issues. Actually, they're so depressed that they see and hear things that aren't there. Depression is mostly an issue of, it's not only being sad also. It's not just, I had a bad day, and I just want to be by myself right now. It's more than that. It's sadness, it's worry, it's hopelessness, it's helplessness, it's lack of self-esteem. You just see the world in a very negative way. And it's been like that for 6 months or more, for most of the time. You don't feel happy doing things that you used to like to do. You feel isolated, you move away from people, you don't want to interact with others. It's more of an ongoing negative spiral that goes down, and you find yourself in a very bad, dark place. That's more depression. Not everyone who's going through sadness, by the way, or grief, is depressed. That's not the case. Certainly also when we're talking about grief, a lot of us have lost someone close to us. It's normal to be sad. It's normal to cry and to feel these feelings of, being isolated and not wanting to talk to people, not wanting to eat, not sleeping well. But if it takes more than six months at the most, and you're still feeling the same, then for certain you need to see someone. You need to see a psychiatrist or a social worker or a counselor. Now, what are the causes of depression? There are many theories out there, certainly. A lot of them, it could be hereditary. It could be, just as any other disease. It's passed on, inherited through relatives or family members. It could be also, again, these are theories, stress. The more stress you are faced with through a long period of time, your body starts to build this hormone, the stress hormone called cortisol. And the more cortisol you get in your body, it changes the way your brain works. SubhanAllah, this is, very interesting fact that, once you start to stress out for a long period of time, you have to just take a break and move back and reevaluate yourself in your life. Because really, it's not only emotional, it's something you can actually see now. It's through, tests, medical tests. The more cortisol you have, the more susceptible you are to getting depression. And it's a chemical imbalance in your brain that happens.
I think that's the reason why it's important to spend time, quality time with your family during the weekend.
Yes.
Or take a break and go for holidays. These are all important aspects of life that we need to understand and we need to apply in our lives. You cannot continue to keep on working, and then it leads to all of these situations.
Absolutely, and certainly, yeah, go ahead.
Can you do some sort of standard test to see the levels of cortisol in your body, or if it's a dangerous level of cortisol?
I wouldn't know the exact amount of cortisol, but it's something that would show the test, the theory that the way that they got these results is that they compared someone who's not depressed. They did a brain scan, like a certain type of brain test that that measure the amount of cortisol in the brain, opposed to someone who does have depression, and it lights up. Like the amount of cortisol in someone who had depression was more. So it's a theory, as I said, but it's a pretty strong theory, I would say. So examples of symptoms of mental health issues: sadness, feeling tired, loss of motivation. So that is like you don't want to go to work, you don't want to go to school, you don't want to go out with your friends, you just don't feel like anything. Irritability, anger. Anger is another issue, certainly, that, that's a whole other day that Brother can talk more about. Hopelessness, helplessness, getting addicted to usually it's a negative thing. Cutting or burning, that's a lot, we see that with teenagers. They cut their wrists or anywhere in general, or burning. It's like a kind of a way, they say, it's a way to relieve stress. It's not necessarily a suicide attempt. Constant fighting, arguing with your loved ones or people at work. Feeling guilty. Low self-esteem, shame, contempt, physical violence. So people who hit others and physically hurt others, that's also a red flag. Changes in appetite, it either goes up or goes down. Some people don't eat, some people overeat. Mood swings, fearfulness, loss of interest. I mean, certainly people that have these symptoms, it does not necessarily mean that they have a mental health issue, but these are symptoms. So if you see someone that is experiencing these symptoms, or if you yourself are experiencing these symptoms, it means that you just need to monitor yourself. You need to, go back and evaluate yourself and your behavior and how you feel.
Can I say physical violence is not only against other family members or people, but it could be against pets.
Yes.
Could be against any living being. Sometimes people, they crush insects, for example, when they see in a very violent way. And those are some of the things that we need to look for.
Or even breaking furniture.
Or breaking.
Or, breaking your things in your house. Or that sort of thing.
Kicking the walls, kicking the doors, punching a hole in the wall.
Yeah. Examples of mental health illnesses or diagnoses. ADHD, we all heard a lot of ADHD with children especially, that they have difficulty staying focused or attention issues. Autism, bipolar disorder, conduct disorder, which conduct disorder is usually the behavioral. It's the extreme, like either physical violence or that type of thing. Depression, grief, complicated grief. So if someone died close to that individual and they're still grieving the same way they did a year ago, that means that it's a mental health issue. Suicide, substance use. So suicide and substance use, it could be the result of how they cope with the difficulties that they are dealing with. So depressed or bipolar, could, they've tried to deal with it for a long time and then they decide to commit suicide. So they do. Or they deal with it by substance use, like drugs or alcohol, or any intoxicant, or gambling. That's just the way that they deal with the stress.
In our case, I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
Substance abuse is even starting to smoke or excessive smoking, especially in the teenager. This is something that happens sometimes.
Brother Muhammad will talk more about that. So stigma, now we get to the issue of stigma. Now, we talked a little, in general, in a nutshell, what mental health is. But stigma is something that even, a lot of cultures, a lot of societies are dealing with when it comes to mental health. Now, stigma is basically shame. It's basically the society shaming the person that feels depressed, that has a mental health issue. I have come from an Arab background. A lot of us may come from, many other ethnic backgrounds, but, a lot of times you would hear that, oh, that person is crazy, that person is unstable, that person or that family doesn't know how to deal with their children. If, a family member has a mental health issue, and that's certainly far from the truth, based on what research has told us, people have depression, people have bipolar. It's not necessarily the way that you were raised. It wasn't necessarily the way that, that person just was born to be crazy. That, a lot of, it's not even a comparison. People that have mental health issues are fully capable of understanding life and just being a normal person. It does not make them crazy by any means. So unfortunately, that's something that we are dealing with as a community, as a society. Even the broader, we're in the United States, we have so many laws that ensure patient confidentiality, which is certainly necessary. However, it's stricter for mental health professionals because they understand, like the Board of Mental Health, the Board of Psychology, they know that society looks down upon people who have mental health issues. In general, it's something that we still have to talk about. It's something that we still have to educate the community about. That these people who are going to a psychologist or a psychiatrist or a counselor, they're normal people. They're not a threat to you in general. And we as a community have to support each other to get through these difficulties and to normalize going to a therapist. So we're talking about myth versus fact. And I did this actually at a school to talk with students about mental health. So the myth is both, the myth is kids can't get depression, only adults can. And the truth is both kids and adults can get depression. It's not an age issue. It's just once a human being is old enough to understand themselves and their surroundings and to have emotions. Babies have emotions, you can see that. Once they're aware of their surroundings and able to communicate with others, that's the beginning, really. There's no age, like the start, to when mental health can happen. People who have mental illnesses are crazy. We talked about that. Certainly has nothing to do with craziness or, their how smart they are or their intellectual abilities. People with mental illnesses are dangerous and violent. Actually, most people with mental illnesses are not violent. Most of them. I can't help anyone with a mental illness. Only a doctor can. Actually, us as a community, you can help by listening, giving support, and encouraging that person to talk with a trusted adult or a trusted professional. mean, when we see someone, when we see someone suffering, when we see someone, you know, emotionally not feeling right, you know, they're either coming to us or they're coming to others, they're behaving in a bad way. For example, they're binge drinking, they're physically fighting with others, they're not sleeping, they're not doing, they're not eating, you know, when we see these red flags of the symptoms that we mentioned earlier, we as Muslims, as, you know, a human being that cares about others, we have to help them. We have to lend them just an ear. We have to talk to them, normalize how they feel, and not to, you know, go up to them and be like, oh, you're crazy, you're a bad Muslim, you're a bad person, you're hitting others. That person probably already knows that. That person already knows probably that they're doing something bad, but they need help. So it's upon us as like lay people, as normal, you know, a friend or a neighbor, just to tell them that, you know, you are someone that's loved, we care about you, you are a Muslim or non-Muslim, and we need you to get help. We need you to get better. We need you to reach your goals as a human being, and to reach your full potential, and to be successful, whatever that person defines success as. So that's why, as a community, we have to guide each other and support each other. And you know, I mean, this is near the end of my presentation, that feeling for others the way that, you know, treating others the way we want to be treated, having empathy towards each other, that's really an Islamic concept. That's us being good Muslims. You know, reaching towards each other and, you know, helping out, having hope as a human being, even at our lowest points. That Allah created us, Allah loves us, Allah wants us to be successful, Allah wants us to build a strong society. And we can't do that without each other's support. So that's really a necessary part of mental health, and really the end of my introduction to what mental health is. And thank you for listening, and certainly Brother Muhammad and Sister Rayhan, they're going to talk a little more about specific issues. And thank you. Thank you for listening.